All right, hello, everyone. Happy Monday. I'm Greta Wall. I'm your host today. I am joined by Derrick Oldensmith. Derrick is a professional trader with T3 Trading Group and the leader of T3 Live's Pro Desk virtual trading floor. Happy Monday, Derrick. How's your beginning of the week going so
Hey Greta, good seeing you. So far so good. Most of my positions are moving in the right direction, so I cannot complain.
far? All right. So our topic for the day today is, oh, actually, quickly, here's a look at Derrick's current positions as of 12:28 p.m. Eastern time today. But it's long, short. Again, he is a professional prop trader with T3 Trading Group. So just disclosing all of positions that Derrick is currently in. All right. So our topic today is Nvidia earnings week, is the top focus for much of the market this week. So we'll start up with Nvidia and then get into what else is happening in the market. So, Derrick, when it comes to NVIDIA's earnings report on Wednesday after the market closed, when we're looking at the stock as of Monday, what are you seeing in NVIDIA ahead of earnings on Wednesday?
Sure. Nvidia overall has been relatively strong compared to the other semiconductor names as we go into the earnings report.
Mhm.
Though I did find that it was weaker than the Qs for maybe the last week or so after failing off 150 resistance. The rest of the market obviously had a really big pullback Thursday, Friday last week, and Nvidia kind of failed down of a bullish consolidation pattern that it's been in. But all bets are off come the earnings report on Wednesday. You never know exactly what's going to happen. I'm still of the thought process though with Nvidia that it can't it has no breathing room as far as not reporting an excellent report. If the report is not phenomenal, then I think that the stock sells down, and it might even bring the Qs down a little bit with it. There's just the expectations are just so lofty for Nvidia after beat after beat after beat. But of course, if any company can do it, it's Nvidia. There's a reason right now that it's the highest market cap company in the world.
For so much of 2024, it was kind of like a Nvidia is the market. Whichever way Nvidia goes is the way the market goes. Since the election, there's been different leaders in the market, and Nvidia's moved, but hasn't been the moves we've seen from Tesla, et cetera. Do you think the dynamic of the market has changed where Nvidia is not so much the end all be all on what's going to happen in the market, even if Nvidia's report,
I
however
think
it
it's
goes?
still the most important company in the world. But
Mhm.
like I said, Nvidia has acted relatively weak for the last 5 trading sessions compared to the Qs, and obviously, especially compared to some of the election story stocks like a Tesla. But in reality, all the semiconductors have been weak. And Nvidia, in some ways, has been the strongest of them. If you look at other charts like AMD, which has pulled back from a high of about 174 or so in October to yesterday, it made a low of 133. I mean, that thing is just so much weaker than Nvidia is right now. Or if you look at Micron, which had an excellent earnings report back at the end of September, but has not been able to really pick its head up ever since then. It's kind of just been weak and range bound. And over the course of last week, Micron pulled back from 114 plus to 95 or so. So all these semiconductor names have been in drawdowns. And NVIDIA, while I would say it's weak, it's still the most important stock in the market because it dictates so much of even how Google and Microsoft and Amazon, how those companies report. It's all about the AI story, right? So if you see weakness come into NVIDIA or you see an earnings report that's not perfect, then the read through on that is, oh no, do we have a problem with our AI story broadly? And then that could weaken out the Mag 7 names and everything else. But otherwise, the market itself is still extraordinarily bullish right now.
When it comes to NVIDIA and some of the, you know, relative weakness we've seen in NVIDIA compared to a stock like Tesla, it's not on this huge run up into the report. Do you think that that helps the stock with the report?
It's not on a huge run into the report, but that's a little bit relative, right? I mean,
Right.
the stock was still down. That August low is $90, and going into
Mhm.
the report, I know it just pulled back $10, but even pulling back $10, it's at 140. So generally, I think when a stock is pretty beaten up into the earnings report, it just makes it easier for a beat to make the stock go higher.
Right.
It's hard to say that Nvidia is beaten up into the earnings report. Again, a couple weekdays in a row, but the market was also very weak on Thursday and Friday of last week. Stock has pulled back $10 after. I mean, where did this thing start the year? I know that there was a split, but it started the year basically at 50, and it's going into the report at 140. So, at least with where it's trading right now. So we'll see what happens. Hard to be bearish on Nvidia, of course, but as my partner Josh Leffler likes to say, bageled ahead. If I was taking a guess, I probably would say down on Nvidia, not up. But we'll see what happens.
All right. Some of the other earnings reports that are coming out this week are in the retail sector: Target, Walmart, Lowe's. Those consumer companies. How important do you think those reports are this week with the economic backdrop, with the Fed having one more meeting this year, the Trump election win? How important is the retail sector for the market when it comes to these reports?
Yeah, the retail sector is interesting. Walmart's always an important one. It's such a massive company in the United States, and $85 is a big resistance level in Walmart that I'd be watching on the earnings report, like the 85 to $86 area, resistance area that it's built out. But the whole retail area is an interesting space because it could be an area that's negatively impacted by tariffs. So we'll see if that obviously comes through or not. Overall, the XRT ETF, the retail ETF, has held in pretty well. It hasn't broken out obviously like some of the other stocks have over the course of the last week or so, but it hasn't broken down either. It's kind of just holding in place. But yeah, Walmart's also a really interesting one to keep an eye on.
So when it comes to the Trump trade, the election trade, Tesla, of course, has been the biggest winner of that trade. The stock again today just up like 8% because of that news that the Trump administration will prioritize rules for self-driving cars, etc. Tesla at this point at where are we sitting?
343.
343. Yeah. Tesla at 343. We briefly topped 350 and then had a pullback last week. Tesla at 343. What are your thoughts?
Here I'm not doing anything. So I've been very, very active in Tesla starting on November 11th when it got to a high of 358 and change that day on the short side. That was like a day 4 to the upside, massive amount of upside extension. So started really shorting into that 350 area and caught a beautiful pullback to the ADMA on the daily. If you want to share my charts, I can
pull up your
pull
charts.
this daily chart up.
All right, your charts are up.
Cool. Let's take a look at this. Yeah, so here's the move, right? First of all, we should probably take a half step back and look at October 24th when the earnings report came out. That earnings report was fantastic for Tesla. It really was. And it changed my thought process on the stock. I had been fairly bearish on the name. I had been doing well, kind of working it to the short side. And then that earnings report was so good. I said, all right, I don't want to be short this thing anymore, except for maybe like a tactical trade into large degrees of upside extension. But the Tesla story in my mind did change, at least in the short run, starting with that earnings report. And then that got just added on to with the election win. So the election win, I mean, people are saying it's the best trade of the year. He spent whatever he spent supporting Donald Trump, I don't know, 130 million or something like that, but his wealth went up by $30 billion or so off the Tesla move alone. So it's a pretty good risk reward on that trade. I think it worked out well for him. And you can just see this move. November 6th through November 11th was massive. But eventually I'm looking at a stock at 350 plus with the ADMA down at 294 still. And that's how I measure extension broadly, is the distance between where a stock is trading and its space between the 8 and 21 EMA. So the ADMA, which is my blue line here, would represent the upper band of equilibrium. The red line is the 21. I would say that represents the lower band of equilibrium. So into this extreme extension, I'll start to look for moves in the other direction. So look for Tesla short, just for a snapback to that upper band of equilibrium, basically the ADMA on the daily. Really, my target was above that. It was like a 315 or so. And I caught a great trade. I caught a great little short trade, even though I'm not necessarily bearish on the stock. It was just a technical extension trade that lasted for 3.5 days or so. Liquidated the position on the 14th at like 315. It pretty much perfectly touched that upper band of equilibrium, that 80 MA. And then on Friday, it was like the strongest stock that was out there again. Friday, I was a buyer at 310. It was a pretty good long. The low was 309.22. I just took it as a day trade. Unfortunately, I didn't swing any over the weekend because you got this great gap up in it. But now where we are with Tesla is not extended enough, in my opinion, to short it. Maybe there was like a cute day trade short at one point, and this thing was approaching 350, which we know is probably a bit of resistance. But it's really just like the day two to the upside. The extension here, and there is extension again at 342. It's $22, $24 or so right now off the 80 MA on the daily. That's opposed to back here on November 11th when I was really trying to lean into that short more. The stock was 65 $65 off the 80 MA on the daily chart. So the amount of extension that you have here to look for a short is not nearly the amount that you had up there. So I'm just nervous when I don't if you're doing anything counter trend, I've learned a long time ago, you're doing anything counter trend, you really need to be careful being too early. If you start too early, if you looked at Tesla on November 8th, which you easily could have, and said, oh, wow, at $310, this thing is really extended. And then the top doesn't come in until almost 360. The $50 worth of pain that you're enduring, if you're able to even endure it, is just so massive that you're probably not going to be able to. So for me, if this is a short into 350, I would rather miss that trade entirely than be too early on it. Yet for a long, the long was on Friday on the 310 test, on the 80 MA test. That's where we wanted to be looking for the pivot low. I don't want to chase it $32 higher from where it was on Friday. I don't want to chase it when it's $24 extended away from the 80 MA. So broadly, I think Tesla right now, right here for new positions is just a bad risk reward on either side. You could short this thing and get smoked when it's at $380 because the momentum continues to come in. Or you could be buying this thing here and have it pull back to 320 or maybe even break this pivot low, pull back to $300, and then also just be getting smoked on the long. So it's just a bad risk reward here. Let's let it reset up. All this movement in here created great opportunities on both sides. If you try to force the trades when it's like in that in-between zone, when you don't have as strong of an advantage, I think you just set yourself up to get hurt.
All right, great. That was great. All right, another election trade that has been ongoing since Trump's win is Bitcoin. The Bitcoin price we've seen just explode. Today we're up above 91,000, up like 2%. Other cryptos also following some of that move. Like your meme coins, Doge and Pepe, and all those the meme coins. I have some Doge that I forgot about, and that was a nice surprise after the election.
Must be nice.
What do you think about the crypto space here and the bull run we've seen and where it's headed?
Sure. So I've never really been a crypto advocate or bull in any meaningful way, to be totally honest, outside of just technical analysis.
Right.
I really think that crypto is only worth what the next person is willing to pay for it, which as a trader, sometimes that's all you need. Going into the election, I was saying, hey, this Bitcoin chart, I don't know if I still have my charts up with you, with this, just pulling up the IBIT chart right here, which I think is the best ETF to just take a quick look at Bitcoin. Going into the election, this thing looked tremendously bullish if it could break out through this like $41 to $42 resistance zone that it had been in for most of the calendar year. It had been in this big range. We know that Trump is most likely going to be really bullish for crypto. So it was just a wonderful breakout on a news situation where people are trying to price in the probability that Donald Trump creates the Bitcoin reserve that he's brought up in the past, which may mean that he needs to buy, I don't know, $100 billion worth of Bitcoin. I have no idea. It could be some crazy number to be able to do that. So it makes sense that there's a chance of a forced massive government buyer to enable this thing to break out through this resistance that you get such a fast, hectic move to the upside. This is another one that I did think got ahead of itself at a certain point last week. Just looking again at the IBIT chart, you had the really big gap up on November 11th, follow through on the 12th, follow through for half the day on the 13th. But at highs on the 13th, it's like, all right, this thing's becoming a little bit overdone again. If you just look at the IBIT chart, the high of the day that day was 53.25. We can measure this in similar ways to what we just did with Tesla. A day 3 to the upside, IBIT at 53.25, the 80 EMA down at 46.40, the 21 EMA all the way down at 42 and change. Just a lot of extension there to that needs to be satisfied eventually through time or price. So I actually shorted for like a 2-day trade basically in Bitcoin. I shorted this thing on the 13th at a pretty good price as on the small time frame, made a little bit of like a lower high, rolled down from there. And then, I didn't even look for the whole move to the 80 MA on this, just a quick shallow move and I was out of the way. Here at this point, I think that a lot of the immediate reaction post the Trump trade is behind us at this point. There is still a good degree of extension, even though this 80 EMA is catching up. There's a lot of extension to the 21 EMA. I think that this is another chart that needs to just build out. So one of my favorite sayings that traders should understand about how markets work is that markets work in periods of expansion and consolidation over time. And the way that you want to think about that is that the consolidation periods in the market are what create the setups for the expansionary periods. And for the expansionary periods, if you're a trend trader or a momentum trader, it's the expansionary periods that can make you a lot of money. So you want to be identifying setups. You want to identify those tightening periods, those consolidation periods, again, that $41, $42 breakout area that we were talking about to capture this big move. But then you don't want to be the late chaser either. You don't want to see this IBIT chart break out from $42 and now it's at $52 3 days after the election. And then you're coming in and buying and you're being the last one to come to the table. And the smart money at that point is probably booking profit and selling into you. So when you look at a Tesla like we just looked at, or you looked at an IBIT, a Bitcoin here, after such a really big move, I think it just needs time to set up, time to consolidate, time to pull back a little bit. So I know we had a strong secondary move Friday through today, and there was good relative strength compared to equities in Bitcoin on Friday. But broadly, I think this chart also needs to just go sideways a little bit. Let this 80 EMA catch up further. Let this 21 EMA catch up further. Build out a bull flag. Build out some sort of technical pattern that we can sink our teeth into a little bit better than what we currently have.
Something I've noticed, personally about the crypto space is like most of your like largest moves will happen, overnight or on the weekend. It's a space, of course, that's traded 24/7. They're starting. Who is starting the 24/7 trading?
Originally Robinhood, but now everyone's trying to do it.
Everyone, right? So with the addition of 24/7 trading of equities, how much do you expect that to change the behavior of the market as it typically is? Do you expect a lot of change?
It's hard to say. It's hard to say how widely adopted it will be. So, right now we have trading from 4 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Right.
It's not like the market just closes at 4 o'clock and reopens at 9:30. Yet
Exactly. Yeah.
the gap at 9:30, gap assessment, gap analysis every morning from the previous day's close at 4 p.m. to the next day's open at 9:30 is a big important part of my trading. The question is, does like 24-hour equity trading or 22-hour equity trading, I think is what they're talking about, is there so much volume happening that the price action is really, really important, like all day and all night, to the point where we don't really get gaps anymore? If the answer is yes, then that'll have a bigger impact on the market structure and how trading works. But my immediate assumption is that trading in the middle of the night for equities is going to be as illiquid as trading is at 7 p.m. for equities. Which, if you ever try to trade stocks at 7 p.m., unless it's an earnings report, the things just they don't move. There's no movement. There's no volatility. There's no volume. There's not too much to do unless there's a specific event. So I think that on certain certain occasional days, it might be important. Like it would have been great to be able to trade all night on the night of the election. But I think for the
Mhm.
most part, it won't overly change market structure. We still have a close at 4 o'clock. The after hours trading session doesn't end at 8 p.m. It ends at midnight or whatever. And then you still have that opening at 9:30, and you still have the bigger volume coming into the market starting at 9:30. That makes that price action significantly more important.
Yeah, your institutions aren't going to be trading at at midnight.
Uh,
I mean, they will
well,
be do
it's
algo
hard to say.
trade, like automatic trading, of course, but
There will be some algo trading, but there's algo trading technically at 7 p.m. right now also. It's just that
right.
there's not enough volume. So the question is, and I'm not certain on the answer, what type of volume do we really see coming in on this after hours? Is there movement? Is there volume? And if yes, well, then it might change how markets work. And if there's not, then it's going to be the exact same as it is right now, except on special situations, you'd be able to log in at 11 p.m. instead of and place a trade instead of being timed out at 8 o'clock.
All right, let's we didn't look at the Nvidia chart for earnings, so if you wanna, can you just show your pull up the Nvidia chart, and then I have your geez. There we go. I have your chart up. So just talk about what you're seeing on the chart when it comes to the earnings report. I mean, me looking at it, we're below the 8 and 21, right?
We
So
are below the 8 and 21 EMA. The 8, they haven't crossed over or anything, and we're still above the last most major pivot high. Sorry, pivot low. The last most major pivot low in Nvidia is 132 spot 11. So just because you trade below moving average does not necessarily mean that the trend is broken. The trend is only broken when your previous pivot low breaks, and the trend only reverses when you go from a pattern of higher highs and higher lows to a pattern of lower highs and lower lows. It's a process that takes time. So we would need the stock to bounce here, create a lower high, then break the low that established, and then you are building out a reversal. So even though the weakness over the course of the last couple of days has gotten Nvidia beneath these 28 and 21 EMAs, it has not broken the trend. The uptrend is still fully intact. 150 is the really big level that it fell down from, with I think some relative weakness over the course of the last several trading sessions. I do think that news events tend to err in the direction of the technicals, and I would describe the technicals
yeah,
as still bullish, even though my read through on it is not as bullish, because I'm just concerned that an inline earnings report from Nvidia leads to actually a sell off because
yeah.
expectations on the stock are just so incredibly high. 150 is the
Mhm.
level to pay attention to. And I also think that one of the fastest ways that you can change the technical picture of any stock or market that you're looking at is through a news event. So I don't know how Nvidia is going to report, but I do feel confident that if it's a miss, the stock gets destroyed. I feel confident that if it's an inline report, that the stock also does not trade well. And even on a small beat, the stock doesn't trade well. Everyone's gotten so used to Nvidia just like absolutely blowing the earnings reports off the Richter scale, that if you don't have that, it probably
Mhm.
is not as strong as a move as we've seen on some previous earnings reports.
Taiwan Semiconductors report, what was that, like a month ago or a month ago at this point? Their report was really strong, and the message on the street was, this is a really great read through for Nvidia. We should expect like a really strong beat and raise quarter from Nvidia. So does that give you some confidence that Nvidia is on track for a great quarter?
Yeah, we'll see. There was definitely a read through on that Taiwan Semiconductors earnings report that was said in the
Mhm.
conference call about our customers are like as strong as ever or whatever, and obviously
Right.
the main customer there is Nvidia, so that was what the read through was. Interestingly enough, Taiwan Semiconductors, that was a really good report. I thought has not traded well since that report. That's
Yeah,
the absolute
it hasn't.
high. And I mentioned Micron earlier. Micron reported last September, so it's almost 2 months old at this point, at the
Hmm.
end of September. That's another one I thought was an incredible earnings report that actually the stock has not traded well since that report. So we kind of actually have a pattern here with some of these semiconductor names on having, decent earnings reports and not being able to give any actual follow through from those reports. So we'll see if Nvidia is the same.
With Nvidia being kind of like the the best of the best in the semiconductor space? Do you think it's possible that, we got all these semi reports, the Micron, the AMD, the Taiwan Semiconductor, but everyone's just waiting for Nvidia to kind of confirm it all that the space is still really strong?
Easily could be. Easily could be. And
Mhm,
I have an AMD long right now. I thought that they oversold this stock down
mhm.
starting on Friday, really last week. So I started buying it small on Friday last week. I've actually been selling it a little bit on the way up in this thing. I want to see if I can get a move back up to 150 overall in AMD. Um, but yeah, I mean, Nvidia is the leader of everything, right? At this point, it's the read through on a lot of the other Mag 7 earnings names, earnings reports when they come around, I guess, and the read through on probably all the other semiconductor names because it's the most powerful player.
How annoying is it that Nvidia reports so freaking late in earnings season?
I kind of like it. I kind of like it, to
Yeah,
be honest.
brings
It
some,
does
it keeps
seem
some excitement till the
right.
end.
It
Yeah.
does seem to me like earnings season is so much more dragged out than it used to be 5 years
Yes.
ago.
Mhm.
It almost seems like as soon as we get to the end of earnings season, the very early ones are about to begin, like really, really
Mm,
quickly. But I
totally.
prefer it that way. I don't like. There was a period of time when we had like Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and Apple like all reporting in like a 2-day window, and it's too much. Like I can't. I'm only human. Really hard to focus on like 4 Mag 7 stocks reporting earnings all at the same time and be able to trade them. So if we spread them out a little bit, it just makes it so I can focus on that name better when the report actually happens.
All right. All right. So it is a Monday. So let's talk through maybe some of the charts and stocks that you like that you're monitoring for ideas for the week.
Sure. So first and foremost is the market itself. The
Hmm.
pullback that I got Thursday into Friday is exactly what I was looking for. I had a whole bunch of shorts on that I were describing as like extension shorts after the really big move post the election. I was short all three major indexes that I look at: the S&P, the Nasdaq, the IWM. I was short Tesla, which we already talked about at that 350 area. I had shorted Bitcoin on Wednesday of last week. I had been short coin into that really big move at a certain point. Um, and short Palantir, which that's the one that I'm still in. Um, Friday was the day for me basically to liquidate all those shorts because I'm really not bearish on the market. I'm bullish on the
Hmm.
market, but I also have extension rules that tell me not to chase upside moves after they've already happened. And actually, when that extension gets extreme, I could potentially look the other direction. So that's what we had hit on like day 3, day 4 of that rally on, coming into Veterans Day Monday a week ago. It was like, wow, we're so extended. I want to look for the technical pullback with time or price correction. And Friday was it. That was my opportunity to really liquidate all my shorts. I liquidated every short that I had except for Palantir. Palantir was trading in a universe of its own off of news that
Hmm.
it had on Friday. It's been another stock that's just been absolutely, absolutely insane. So I was able to basically get out of all my shorts and then start building back into longs. So not only did I get out of all my index shorts, my Tesla short, my Bitcoin short, but I started to buy AMD. I started to buy Google. I started to buy the Qs, which I got out of today. I started to buy the IWM via the TNA ETF. Today, I continued that a little bit by buying some biotech. I started buying some Moderna on Friday. Continued that today and started to buy some XBI today. So I'm still pretty bullish on this market going into the end of the year. There are a lot of really bullish seasonal flows that are going on right now. $6 billion a day is the estimate on how much is being bought back from the corporate buyback universe over the course of the month of November. That's a really hard number to fight. It's a really hard number to
Yeah.
be short. The technicals
Mm,
overall are still bullish, even though the Thursday to Friday pullback was pretty heavy, and we gave up probably at least half of the post-election gains. I think that that's the viable dip. So for me, it was an opportunity to primarily liquidate shorts and then come in on the long side of this market and start buying things up. So that's what I like. I like the market itself. I like looking for longs right now. Obviously, Nvidia could still derail that a little bit. And my other concerns are interest rates and the dollar. If these interest
yeah.
rates really continue higher on the path that they've been moving, that could derail the rally. If the dollar continues to move up in the way that it's been moving up, that could also derail this rally. But we're getting a little bit of relief on the dollar today. We're getting a little bit of a bounce back off lows in the TLT, so a little bit of intraday relief on interest rates. And I think that that is a tailwind for a good buy the dip mentality right now when you have a lot of other strong seasonal flows into the end of the year. And then, next thing you know, all of CNBC, which I don't really watch CNBC unless I'm in the office and Josh forces me to. All of CNBC is going to be talking about the Santa Claus rally. I hate that.
Right.
It's such an annoying time of the year. Then we have the January effect. I mean, all that is just cute terms to describe the strong seasonality that comes in on this year. And
Yeah.
what I have really learned over the course of the last couple of years is that seasonality is created by flows that tend to be forced at periods of time. So,
Mm-hmm.
why is November tend to be so strong? Well, it's the biggest month of the year every year for buybacks, as just one example. So,
Mm-hmm.
I'm really bullish this market in like the short, medium term right now. And then once we get through our, first week or two in January and get through that January effect, then I think that we can reassess things at that point. And that's also about the time of Trump's inauguration. So we can
Yeah.
reassess everything and what the technicals look like as Trump is officially stepping up to become president and as we enter the calendar year of 2025. So I love the market and therefore everything that's correlated with it. Like I mentioned, started buying that AMD on Friday. I like it, but you got to be a little bit cautious, obviously, with NVIDIA report coming up. These
Yeah.
biotech stocks got so smoked over the course of the
Yeah, I
last
forgot to
5
ask about
days.
biotech earlier, but what like XBI typically does really well at the end of the year into the beginning of the year. How much does the RFK Junior nomination change the typical seasonality for XBI?
Sure. So small caps, medium caps should tend to be able to do better in this environment, and that would include a
Mhm.
lot of the biotech names. They also do get hit the most when interest rates move higher, which is what's been happening. When it comes to the biotech move on the RFK situation, that was officially announced on Thursday afternoon during market
Yes.
hours, and
Yeah.
in my opinion was very widely telegraphed. I think it was
Yes.
pretty well known that
You
he was
knew
going
that
to
was
be
coming. Yeah, for sure.
put in that position. So in my mind, it should have been priced into the market at some point by the time it was announced. Uh,
Mhm.
I think that the only reason that these biotechs got hit as hard as they did as well on Friday, that the follow through, part of it was technical. You lost like a big technical support level around $96 on Friday, but the entire market got smoked on Friday. So they
Mhm.
sold down the IWM, they sold down XBI with it. But at this point, that news, in my opinion, should be more than priced in to these stocks. And the same rules where we were just looking at upside extension in Tesla and Bitcoin and talking about the 8 and 21 EMA on the daily charts and how they represent stock equilibrium. Now look at where these things are trading compared to the 8 and 21 EMA, let alone where they were 5 days ago. This is a day
Mhm.
5 to the downside now with XBI trading beneath 92 and the 80 EMA at 97, the 21 EMA
Right.
at 98.40. So I started buying
Mhm.
XBI and IBB today. I purchased them somewhat aggressively, but not looking for huge moves. I'm just looking
Mm.
for like a quick bounce back off of the downside extension, and then I can reassess. So I'm long XBI, I'm long IBB, I'm long Moderna. It's pretty much all the same trade here. Moderna's another one. I'm not a Moderna bull. For, you know, nothing to do with vaccines, liking vaccines or not liking vaccines. It has everything to do with the fundamentals of the company. This company loses a lot of money. They were not
Yeah.
able to be a profitable company even when there was like government mandated vaccines that were going on, and Moderna was the number one player in that space. So
Right.
I don't love the company, but I'm looking at a stock that just traded down from $56 to $36 over the course of 6 trading sessions, that on Friday was beneath $36 with the ADMA at that point that was at 43 and change on a day 7 down. This is when I really
Yeah.
like to come in and look for those counter trend bounce trades. And
Mhm.
I'm not looking for a move back to 57. I'm not looking for a reversal. I'm just looking for a retracement of some portion of the down move. Get me back to $40. If I'm buying Moderna at 36 and I can get a bounce back trade to 40, it's not even where the ADMA is on the daily. It could overshoot 40 easily. I can make a nice chunk of change for myself. But it's another one of those counter trend trades that you got to be really patient on. You can't be too heavy too early. You want to wait for a signal because when it comes to this counter trend stuff, you're better off missing the trade entirely than being too early. Also, like we described when we were looking at shorting Tesla at 310 when the final peak on that thing was actually 360. You got to be patient on this. You have to have a good game plan. You have to manage your risk well. But these counter trend trades can pay pretty well in periods of extremes. And I think that's kind of what we're looking at with these biotech names here broadly.
All right, great stuff, Derrick. All right, for everyone who is with us live, you can go to t3live.com/do live to get Derrick's free ebook about prop trading and the benefits of prop trading. Again, Derrick is a professional trader with T3 Trading Group, and if you work with them, you work with Derrick. So he leads the Pro Desk virtual trading floor at T3 Live as well. All right, Derrick, it's Monday. Have a great rest of your trading week. Good luck.
Thanks,
good luck with the Nvidia earnings report, and everyone else, good luck. And have a good week.
Appreciate it. See you next time.
All right, bye.